Hi everyone, Ellen here, and welcome to Washington Watercolor. The Great Blue Heron is a bird I'm very familiar with. Sometimes I'll see one in the local ponds or lakes nearby, or I'll even catch a glimpse of one flying overhead. In this video, I'll show you how to paint a wet into wet background. I'll continue to use the same method to paint the neck and the body of this beautiful bird. And finally, I'll use white gouache to paint the feathers. Here's a list of the colors I'll be using for this demonstration. I'll begin with a basic drawing of the bird. For this video, I'm using a 2B pencil so you can see my lines, but I do recommend you use a 2H. Once I'm happy with my drawing, I'll apply some PBO drawing gum. Tools I'll be using for this application include a color shaper, a paintbrush, and also an incredible nib for finer lines. As always, I pre-treat my brush with a soapy solution. I carefully apply the drawing gum, otherwise known as masking fluid, to the edges around the bird. That looks pretty good. Be sure your masking fluid is dry before moving on to painting. The brushes I'll be using for today's painting include a Princeton 1/4 inch flat brush, a Princeton script brush, 2 Rosemary Series 402 number 6 and 8, and a Princeton Neptune quill number 6. Start by preparing a few colors for my background. Some of the colors I'll be dropping into my background include quinacridone magenta, ultramarine blue, perylene green, and yellow ochre. I wet my background with clean water using my big brush. I'm very careful not to go into the bird. I love the pinkish glow of the water, so I'll start by dropping in some of my quinacridone magenta. And to that, I'll then add a little bit of ultramarine blue. Add some yellow ochre to the top left area, and then finally I'll drop in some perylene green. I then add some burnt sienna and let the paint really mix together on the paper. With this darker mixture, I'll add in some of the reflections. I'm very careful to take a lot of the water off of my brush, so going in with more of a damp brush with some color and hopefully avoiding blossoms. I decided to try this rosemary flat brush to add in some more of the reflections. To darken my green, I'm taking perylene green, mixing it with a little bit of burnt sienna and also some quinacridone magenta. To successfully work wet into wet paint, it really takes a lot of practice. I feel this first layer is done, so now I'll give my painting a dry. I use a spray bottle to mist the background and the foreground. I really want the background to be darker, so I'll paint in a second layer, using the same method, wet into wet. I'm now introducing some neutral tint to the background. Neutral tint mixed with some perylene green and perhaps a touch of burnt sienna really provides for a beautiful, rich, dark color. Okay, I'm pretty satisfied with this background, so now I'll give the painting a dry. Using a rubber cement eraser, I'll now lift up all of my masking. I'll use my flat brush to clean up any messy edges. With my fine brush, I'll add some cadmium yellow to the beak of the blue heron. I also add some touches of Windsor Orange red shade. Even though the eye is so tiny, it's very important to the whole picture, so I'll add a little bit of yellow to the iris or the colored part of the eye. I continue using my Windsor Orange red shade and I paint around the outer edges of the bird where the light is catching. I see a hint of purple in the beak, so I'll just add a touch of purple there. I continue down the body of the bird, painting hints of orange where I feel there's a little warmth. I'll add some Windsor Violet to the bottom part of the bill or beak. I was a little messy with my masking, and there's a spot right above the beak that where I need to fill in some of my background color. Now I'll paint in a dot for the pupil or the dark spot inside the eye, and I'll start by adding little bits of dark around the eye socket. I continue using the neutral tint and paint in the black crest. I add a few more details to the face. I'll now paint the neck, starting with some neutral tint mixed with a little bit of Windsor Orange. While my paint is still wet within the channel of the neck, I'll add in some other colors such as ultramarine blue. I'm pretty happy with the neck, so now I'll move on to painting the body. My initial goal is to create a fullness or roundness of the form, and I'll start with the lighter colors first, Windsor Orange, red shade, and I'll move into ultramarine blue, getting everything a little bit darker, and then I'll add in some Windsor Violet, and finally I'll add in some neutral tint. Again, this is a wet into wet wash, and I'll just let the paint kind of flow and carry itself and mix with the other colors. Using the point of my brush with an upward brush stroke, I'll work the paint into the feathers above. Next, with a very light wash, I'll paint in the subtle ridges or shapes going along the back. I'll continue to darken areas and seek out little subtle value changes. Using a combination of neutral tint and burnt sienna, I paint the legs. Using the same combination of colors, I'll paint in the tree branch. I really want my painting of this heron to stand out from the background, so I'll continue to darken areas. Here I'm using touches of ultramarine blue mixed with a little bit of neutral tint. And I'll warm up some areas with some burnt sienna. I add a little bit of brighter orange to the bill, and then I add some neutral tint and darken up the crest. A few dark touches here and there will really make the bird stand out. I continue to darken areas in between the feathers. Using my flat brush, I'll soften and clean up any areas along the outline, and I'll also rotate my painting around just to make the whole process easier. To get some of the top feathers, I'll now use a little bit of white titanium gouache. Gouache is very similar to watercolor, except it is opaque, so the colors underneath will show through a little bit. I'm really happy with how my painting came out. I love the fullness of the bird, and I love the soft wet into wet background, including the reflections with a little bit of pink showing through. So now I'm just going to sign my painting and take off my tape. I hope you enjoyed watching my painting unfold, and if you are new to my channel, please remember to like and subscribe. Thank you so much for watching. See you next time.